Hello, my name is Kurt Troutman. I'm a professor of history at Muskegon Community College. I'm joined here today by a colleague, George Maniotis, also a professor of history at the college, and we'd like to introduce the USS LST 393 Veterans Museum, our hometown treasure here in Muskegon. George, we're glad to have you here today.
Well, thanks, Kurt. I'm glad to be here with you today to talk about the LST and its wonderful accomplishments. As you know, we're very blessed as a community to have the LST as part of our heritage here in Muskegon, and I'm really looking forward to talking about how it contributes to the community and to our veterans.
LST, Landing Ship Tank. This was a ship that was one of 1,050 that were created during the second half of World War II. They were designed to bring large tanks, materials, supplies across the Atlantic to our fighting troops in Europe and North Africa.
Yes, and the LST, Landing Ship Tank, is so vital to that D-Day experience, as we all know. But why should we really know about this LST in Muskegon? What's the point of this fine museum, and what are they trying to do down there?
Well, it is part of our heritage. This LST actually landed at D-Day, the Normandy invasions. This ship was part of it. And it's one of only two active museum LST ships in the entire country. George, I know you've been there several times. What are some impressions you have from the LST?
Well, you know something that's so interesting about this LST? You know, Kurt, this was a hometown effort to rehabilitate a boat done by a non-for-profit organization of local people. And it's just unbelievable what they've done down there. And that board of directors down there has done so much to try to put together this World War II artifact. And if you look at their mission, what they've done with that, it's just unbelievable. For example, they've restored the LST and preserved it as an actual landing craft that would be similar to what we see on D-Day. They've created a beautiful Veterans Museum on board, which is, really commemorates not only just World War II veterans, but Vietnam era, Persian Gulf era, Korean. And it really has done a nice job of documenting veterans from Muskegon County and the western Michigan area. And the other thing is that's been a catalyst for providing educational programs for students and the general public over the last few years. And we've been very honored to be part of that initiative as well. And the other thing we are seeing is there are attempts to reach out to assist the community with things like veterans job fairs and library book sales and all kinds of things. So they become a critical place of gathering and a catalyst for our community.
It truly is one of the anchors right along the lake shore, right there at the Mart Dock. What I find with the LST, George, is that it's like walking into yesterday. It's history in a living fashion. When you open the bow doors and walk through there, immediately you're greeted by a 1941 Jeep.
Yes, and that you just get a feeling like, how would that boat be? Full of tanks and Jeeps and troops. You almost get a kind of a feeling going on, a mental picture, that what this would have been on like D-Day, coming in June 6, 1944, riding the waves in to the shore.
With 28 Sherman tanks on board, and on D-Day, a complement of up to 300 fighting combat troops. So you really feel that when you walk in. George, talk more about this museum, and are they government funded?
No, that's the thing that's so unique about this. They're a 501c3, so it's a nonprofit. They operate out of the benevolence of just people like ourselves giving money, doing fundraisers, trying to keep the doors open. And like all private groups today, they have to fight a good fight to keep things going, and it takes a lot of effort, and it's a lot of people behind that. Maybe you'd like to talk about some of the key individuals that are behind that effort, because there's a bunch of folks that really deserve credit for what they're doing down there, and it's really wonderful to see how so few people have done so much, and I think we ought to praise them for their efforts.
Fully agree. This ship came to Muskegon in just terrible shape. It had been neglected for years and years. It was used intermittently as a cross-lake ferry to take goods and services over to Milwaukee, but for the most part in complete disrepair. Mm-hmm. Well, right at the dawn of the 21st century, Dan Wyko, Bob Wygant, took control of this and led an effort of preservation to bring this ship to Muskegon, and most important is to restore it.
Yeah.
It took quite a bit of time. It took many, many different people, and it really wasn't until 2007 that the bow doors would finally open and this museum would be shipshape, ready for visitors.
Over the last 10 years that I've been in town here, since my arrival, I've seen great things happening with that ship. And really, it's just not only just Bob and Dan, but there's been a lot of other people behind the scenes too that have been instrumental with the fundraising. John Stevenson, for example, Steve Allen, Scott Grant, Holly Hughes, Dave Ealing. All of them have been contributors in their own fashion, either fundraising, advising, really working collaboratively. And it takes a lot of effort from busy people. You know, it's always the busy folks that seem to have more things on their plate than they can stand. You know, it's never somebody that has like nothing on their plate that's on these boards. It's always somebody that has a lot. And they've really done a great job turning that around. And we know if they didn't step in, probably it would have been a pack of razor blades, you know, for your Wilkinson razor or something, you know. If they didn't step in. And that's the fate of many of these World War II ships. Unfortunately, they were scrapped out after the war, and in the interceding years, they rusted in ports, and they were neglected. And after a while, they were just taken away for scrap metal. And it's been wonderful that we have been very lucky to have two wonderful military artifacts like that in this town.
So very true. It is living history. That's what that ship is. And when you walk aboard, they have so many great events there. I'm always impressed each year when they have the Veterans Job Fair. And this year, over 60 companies will be there representing, looking to hire Muskegon area veterans.
And yeah, that's such a tremendous thing. And that Veterans Job Fair really opens many opportunities up for our community, especially for people that have returned from service. They're looking for that first position. Or maybe they've been out of the service for many years and they're just looking to step up. You know, everybody today needs a good job. They need benefits. They need a decent wage. You have to start someplace, and many people have already entered into the job market, but they're looking for that second or third position. Well, this is a place to start finding it. And it's really become quite a catalyst for our community. I really like the fact that they've gone over and beyond, trying to reach out to our folks, helping them with their economic success. And that's really a tremendous asset to have this group doing that. But, you know, when we're talking about this boat, what else should we really know about it in terms of just not only a museum, but as a community resource? Are there other things we should be taking into consideration?
There certainly are. This is an entertainment venue. In the summer, the movies on the deck are extraordinary. To go out there on a Friday night and to see some of the classic old movies like Casablanca, some of the World War II movies, out on the big screen on the deck, you bring your chair, enjoy the company of your community. It's a lot of fun, it really is.
And all on the shores of Muskegon Lake. And you can't do that at the drive-in, can you?
It's a beautiful view, and in addition, they hold a book sale each year. George, I know you've been to the book sale several times. What's your impression of down below and the decks when the book sale?
It's wonderful. You know, they have those book sales often in April, and the Friends of the Hackley Library are very instrumental in holding those. I know it's a little bit cold on that boat because they have to open it up a couple weeks earlier than they usually do, but they surely get the crowds, and that's just a phenomenal place to have a book sale. You know, you don't realize how big that boat is and how much you can pack on there. And there's hundreds of people that descend on that boat and look for bargains. You know, let's be honest, books are our friends, so we might as well pick them all up.
I think one of my favorite events there was just back in the fall, Michigan State football game. To watch that on the tank deck, on the big screen, there were about 150 people there. Of course, half of them were Wolverine fans, half of them were Spartan fans, cheering to our heart's delight. It was just a really interesting day, as well as it's an active museum. So in between plays at halftime, there were people looking at the very exhibits. And I want to talk about some of the exhibits. I think when you walk on the ship, the one that grabs me the most is immediately on your left side, there is a wall of Muskegon's fallen heroes. And
Yeah.
that's a tribute memorial to all those who have really given the last full measure, have died in service, and they're Muskegon people. And that's what this museum is, Muskegon people at this museum being honored. As you mentioned earlier, veterans of all eras. This is a World War II ship, but make no mistake, there's something on there for everyone. And it's so interesting to see the veterans down there helping out from all eras.
Well, that's been the great synergy of this vessel, is the fact that it's not only just the volunteer board, but the people that volunteer on a daily basis, doing the little things, from the maintenance to the painting to the fixing. And many of them are veterans, and they were Navy vets or Army vets, and they have a place to assemble. And it becomes like a camaraderie, I noticed, with that group down there. They really work hard, and they really take great pride in it. And it's a place to gather, and it really has supplemented the museum down there in terms of its mission and its accomplishments, because without that volunteer labor, they would have to pay for all of those services and probably couldn't afford to do that. But the volunteer labor goes such a long way in stretching the mission of that boat.
And I think, like everything, volunteering helps both the recipient and the givers.
Absolutely.
As you walk through the ship, there are so many exhibits on both sides of you. I like to proceed on through to the back of the ship on the right side, and we've got an area there with Muskegon Veterans Wall of Honor. And I'm actually proud to announce the most recent veteran that's been put up on the Wall of Honor is a World War II veteran named Clarence Zillman. And Clarence Zillman was a bugler from Muskegon during World War II, and he was deceased in 1988, and it's taken quite a bit of time, but we've uncovered information about him, and he is the most recent person put up on the Muskegon Wall of Honor.
Well, I think you're being very modest. He wasn't a bugler. He was a particular bugler of quite some fame, and you might want to discuss why we should know him.
Well, during World War II, there were over 1,000 soldiers that served as Army buglers. And of course, their job was to sound reveille, to wake the troops up in the morning, give the audio or the bugling notes all day long, and of course, put them to sleep at night. How many of those, if any of them, received an article in the paper? Well, probably very few, with one exception. Clarence Zillman from Muskegon had over 30 articles in newspapers across the country. And why was he infamous? We all know why. Because of the 1941 song, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B. That inspiration was Clarence Zillman from Muskegon. He was Muskegon's Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, and his unique brand of reveille with a swing dance to it really brought the troops up quite cheerfully. It's been one of the great stories that's been somewhat untold until recently, and that's where one of the many purposes of the museum is to continue to share local stories about local veterans.
Yeah, and that is so powerful. And you know, those Andrews sisters that made their day, obviously, that was the iconic tune that put them on the map, so to speak, with World War II troops. And it's a Muskegon connection, and we would not know that unless we've ferreted that out and really looked at it, and much a testimony to you and your efforts to solidify that. We had some inkling, but you've really gone over and beyond that, and have him commemorated down there, and to have his family out at a recent lecture of ours at a different venue was quite nice. There's other things that are going on down, obviously, at the museum in the next couple weeks. There'll be a lot of things that are happening. One thing, it takes a lot of time to get this ship going because it isn't open in the winter. I'm correct on that, I believe.
Correct,
right?
It's not. Environmental challenges. It sits in the harbor in a bucket of ice, effectively, and it's quite cold on ship. To heat it is just not reasonable. And again, we've got nothing but volunteers who are staffing this. So this ship is going to open, and we're ready to open up in the last weekend of April. And it'll start with just Friday, Saturday weekends, and then by May, it'll be open up 7 days a week through the end of
Exactly.
September. So it's really a weather-dependent schedule here.
So if somebody was interested, you know, there's always somebody out in the community that's saying, well, geez, I wish I could do something, or I'd like to help. How would they get a hold of somebody at the museum down there to volunteer or to assist? Because I know they have some, you know, weekend volunteering to get started. There's a volunteer fest, I gather, in April, with a work project April 15th through 17th. But how would they get involved?
Quite easily. We'd love to have them down there. The website, www.lst393.org. Contact that website. It is monitored. There's a place for information. Someone will get back with you quite quickly. We'd love to add to the volunteers. We find there are so many things. People who want to work in some type of painting, maintenance, learning about the exhibit, giving tours, helping with overnight programs, the evening programs up on deck. There's something for pretty much anyone who wants to be involved with this museum.
So you don't have to be handy with tools. You don't have to do a lot of physical labor if you're not capable of that. Maybe you can just be a ticket taker or work the store there, or they have a little shop or store on board. There's something for everybody, right?
Even
Male,
college
female.
professors.
Yes, great. And maybe we should talk. This might be a good time to start introducing what we will be doing down there on the Silver Sides with one of our co-collaborators in the next few weeks.
What we're looking at is a program to kind of really help kick off the upcoming summer season. So it's going to take place at Muskegon Community College on Monday, March 18th. And this is really acknowledging that now is the time to share veteran stories, and particularly our treasured Vietnam veterans. So we've invited one of our colleagues, Professor Tim Norris, to be the featured speaker. And George, share with the audience, what is Professor Norris going to talk about at this event?
Well, he's going to be looking at how we memorialize the Vietnam War through local as well as national monuments on Vietnam. So Tim is an art historian and an operative artist. So he has the experience, and he did a nice job with another venue where we had a program on memorials of the Civil War. And he gave a real nice series of lectures to people. And we're hoping to capture that in a one-program effort on the LST, where people can look at the art and look at how artists have commemorated these themes of, you know, venerating our veterans. And it's been often very difficult to understand all of this. You know, many of us are not artists by nature. You know, we know what we like and we know what we don't like, but we don't know what goes behind it. And it's always good to hear Tim discuss from the artist's point of view. And you don't have to be an accomplished sculptor or painter to understand this stuff.
But you will walk away with a good understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
Tim spent quite a bit of time researching. That's what he's going to show us this evening on Monday, April 18th. He's going to start with one of our memorials down near Mona Lake called Final Approach. And as you drive by on the Seaway, it looks like a helicopter. That's what it is. He'll give us the artist's view of that, exactly what it is, why it is, how that was chosen, and what it's reflecting. In addition, he's then going to move us via films and pictures up to Memorial Park in North Muskegon. We had a complete remakeover of Memorial Park, and what has taken place there is some new benches, the Vietnam benches. What does that mean? They look like they're made out of barbed wire or something. Tim will interpret that not as a military man, but as an artist, as an art historian. And then he's going to finish with a wonderful presentation on the famous Vietnam Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. So this is all part of a program designed to promote the USS LST 393 in our community with the upcoming season. When you walk on the boat, there is just history just jumps out at you. Again, if it's not the fallen heroes, if it is not Muskegon men, we have got a variety of things looking at period. What was the clothing? What were the uniforms? When you look up at eye level, you'll see uniforms everywhere. We talked briefly, George, about the Muskegon heroes. I think one of the ones that is most often appreciated there is Ike Kepford. And Ike Kepford was a Muskegon man who had an extraordinary World War II career. Joseph Byerly is also featured there. So we have a strong Muskegon connection. And there are actually over 1,500 documented World War II veterans from the Muskegon area. Certainly more we do not know about, and we're always looking to update that. So George, the museum, how does this rate as a family experience? To come there and bring your family,
well, I think it is a family venue, and it's funny that you bring that up, because many people think, well, it's war and maybe little kids don't understand it or it's too heavy for them. But young people like the fact that they can see and do and climb and manipulate things, and that's what this museum is about. It's getting on, seeing a ship, experiencing what it's like, climbing up on 1, 2, 3 decks, going up ladders and such, and seeing different displays. And little kids as well as adults, as well as grandparents, will love this. It's a all generations type place. And I had a lady come up to me the other day. She said, you know what, her niece, who was in the 4 years old, was so captivated by the ship that it really grabbed her. She said that was the cool museum. And she went to another museum in town, and I won't name the names, and she said they were bored, they didn't understand it. But when it got to the ships, boy, they were just excited. And little kids love them. You know, they like ships. So bring out the kids, bring out the family, and it's economically priced to bring a family to it. It's not like you have to break the family budget to go to a museum.
But this is even important. This ship is 70 years old. How can this be important to your family and your young children?
Well, I think you have to explain how important World War II was to our generation and to their generation. And obviously little children and even 18, 19, and 20-year-olds that we teach don't understand World War II. So we have to do a job of explaining to them. You know, we were fortunate, Kurt, you know, it was our father's generations that fought in the war, and so it was part of our living history. But now it's their great-grandparents in some cases, and they don't know this. And we have to really kind of go back and educate them against the fight against fascism and really the world's greatest generation. So we have to do a better job of revisiting this, and that's what our duties as history professors are, and that's what we do through our Center for Experiential Learning. We try to make history palatable in the way that we teach it, in terms of not only just lectures, but going out to venues, involving the community. We really do a good job of trying to grab people where they're at and bring them to the next level and make history interesting. And we do it through travel too. And you know, we've done a number of programs where we've gone to different historical venues, including World War II sites and Civil War. We've even gone to museums, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for example, which we're going to be going to in May for music. And we did a recent program in the caves in Mammoth Cave down in Kentucky with our science faculty. So we're really trying to engage the community into understanding that education can be fun, it can be a learning experience, and it's really changing the way people perceive the community college. We're putting community back in the word community college. This is not some sort of ivory tower where we have, you know, people with leather patched coats telling us that they're going, you know, they're the smartest people in the world, and just sit down and listen, and we put them to sleep.
We know, and I do agree, and I applaud the LST for more than meeting us halfway. Mm-hmm. Dan Weichel has come out to the college here and worked with my students many times. John Stevenson has been out to the college. I know you're well familiar with John, right, and he is a wonderful presenter. Holly Hughes has come out here. Dave Ealing, many from the LST, and it really makes for a real good partnership.
Right.
And we've worked for a few years with the LST on a variety of different programs, lecture series, trying to bring more history to our community. And that's something we'd like to work with the LST in this upcoming summer season to see what type of events can we help with, what type of presentations can we have on the ship during the summer. George, what are your thoughts about our Vietnam veterans? Is it time for them?
More
Do
than
we have
time.
a message that
More,
they could
more
help
than
us with?
time. It's now time to come out and talk. And I know it's difficult for many of them. They've been bottled up for a long time. This is a generation of folks that were not commemorated for their efforts and their fighting. When they came back home, they were often reviled. Many of them shared stories that they were treated like baby killers, etc. But it's now the time to come out and talk. It is now the time to discuss what you experienced, what you thought. And I know it's difficult, but as one of the Vietnam veterans we recently experienced said, now's the time to talk. If you want to get over your post-traumatic stress and this sort of thing, now time to share stories. And this is a catharsis. And they shared the fact that, they were the only generation that was not shipped home as a unit. They were shipped home as individuals, put on airplanes, and 12 hours or 15 hours later they're sitting back in San Francisco, right out of the jungles of Vietnam to San Francisco without a decompression. And wasn't fair to them. And now's the time to come forward and discuss their experiences. And from all indications, they're now time. The time is now. They should do it.
Well, and that's what we hope to do with this presentation on April 18th. This is going to be a forum, a venue for veterans to share their stories. Yes, Professor Norris is going to talk to us about how we memorialize our veterans, and that'll be a wonderful presentation. But really, we'd like to invite veterans out to share their stories, to say as much or as little as they would like to, because I know we've got an audience that wants to hear their stories and needs to hear their stories.
And where do they do that again?
It'll be at Muskegon Community College. This
Right.
will be April 18th, and from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the Stevenson Center at room 1100. It's a large lecture hall on the campus.
And the cost for that program?
There is no cost to this. This is completely free. The LST is promoting this as a way to reach out to all veterans of all eras, but particularly our Vietnam veterans, and really to give them a forum to have their say, to share their story with our community.
Right. So please come on out. We want to see you at this program. This is the time to find out more about the Vietnam conflict and to be able to share your story. And this is the time for you to come forward. And we invite the community to join us. Again, 18th of April, Monday night, 6 o'clock. We're looking forward to having all of you come out and join both Kurt, I, and Tim Norris for this presentation.
Well, George, thanks for coming on the program here and sharing the story of our Muskegon hometown treasure. The LST is just really a pride of our community. So thank you for joining us. And
It's been my pleasure.
I look forward to seeing you on board the ship.
Yep, take care.